Well, hello, and welcome to the Africa and Middle East Travel Advice Community. Welcome. Today we are going to be going over what it's going to be like traveling in 2022. It's the Return to Africa show. My name is Amber Camish, and I am the owner of Worldly Escapes. I am here today to talk to you. I'll make myself full screen here. I am here today to talk to you about travel to Africa. I'm sure it's been a bucket list destination for many people. And now that travel is coming back in 2022, we are excited to see what travel is going to be looking like heading over to the continent, and also what kind of amazing programs we have going forward. So if you're here live right now, or if you're going to be watching this on replay, please put in the comments what countries you would like to visit. What are you excited to see or do coming up? I'd love to hear what you are excited to see and where you want to travel for 2022. If you have anything that's on the books, if there's anything that you're going to be doing in the near future, please let me know. I would love to see that as well. So I'm just going to give it another couple of seconds here just to make sure everybody who's going to be coming this evening will be filtering in. And then once they're here, we're going to get started. So thank you very much for tuning in. And I'm going to head right over to the presentation. So let's start off with what travel is going to look like in 2022. So lots of things have changed, probably since the last time anybody's really had a big trip. There is vaccinations, PCR tests, all new protocols of safety and security going on, as well as there are some new things to know about what it's like to travel, where to be going, and what it's going to look like in 2022. So, of course, there are so many things that we need to know these days. As I said, there's been a lot of changes that have gone on. One of the big things that what we need to look at are the policies that have changed. So we're talking about, of course, the COVID policies, the policies and the rules for each destination, the airlines, and of course, what's happening here in Canada and our return back to the country once we finish traveling. So as I've been doing this in the last week, there have been over 6 destinations in Africa that have changed their rules, which means that they've actually lowered the restrictions, including removing the PCR test for any vaccinated travelers. This is Kenya, Tanzania, South Africa, Botswana, Namibia. All of these countries in the last week or two have changed their rules. So we won't be going over specific rules today for different countries because they're constantly changing. However, if there is something that you're looking for or some specific destination, we can definitely have a chat about that, but we won't be doing anything right now because by the time somebody watches this, it may have already changed. There are destination rules, so things like the destination and the country that you're traveling to. This is usually going to be your vaccination status as well as your testing, whether or not you need to test to come into the country, and if there's even a requirement of testing to depart the country. So we need to know what destination and what those rules are. Also, if you're combining destinations in Africa, which is a very common thing for people to do, they want to combine as many countries as they can, South Africa, Botswana, Victoria Falls, things like that, then we do need to look at the destination rules in between those countries as well, not just arriving from Canada. There are also airline rules. Those are going to be slightly different. They usually follow the rules of the destination itself, but they can also have their own rules as well. This usually refers to things like the vaccination status and masks that you need to wear, those sorts of things. So we do need to look at those, especially if we're going to be connecting via another country, which is usually going to be on the European continent. Insurance coverage, that has changed a little bit as well. We are very grateful that the Canadian government has finally reduced the restrictions down to a level 2 recently, which means that the insurance coverage has basically gone back to normal. However, you may need to look at if your country now requires you to have insurance. That is something that a few countries have implemented, that they want to ensure that they will review your insurance documents on arrival to make sure that you have enough coverage just in case you do get sick in destination while you're traveling. There is also COVID insurance. So in case that you do get sick and you do have to quarantine, there is an additional insurance above and beyond your standard cancel for any reason, your standard trip cancellation and delay, which is what we've normally had over the last few years. There is an additional COVID insurance now that you may be able to add if you want to, which would cover things like your quarantining and also any hospitalization, and of course, if you have to make any changes to your flights upon your return. So that is something that you will need to look at and consider moving forward as well. And of course, the government advisories. So each country, their governments will have their advisories. As I've said, Canada has been very great and has lowered the current rules to return, but that doesn't mean they might not change in the future. So we just need to realize that all three of those things will need to be reviewed before you travel. Having a travel agent help you with this will ensure that you're following all the rules as we keep up to date with all of our suppliers, our local tour operators on the ground, as well as all of the government regulations per country as well. Vaccine requirements. This is something that you need to review. If you do have your fully vaccinated status, most countries now will allow you to travel in. It will be usually based on the difference would be whether or not you need to get a PCR test as well. Some countries are now dropping the PCR test to enter the country, including Canada. But there may still be countries that you do need to test. There are also health cards and online forms for most countries that you're traveling to. So those things are usually done in advance, about 72 hours before departure. You will need to go online and do health declaration forms before you travel. This is very similar to the ArriveCan app that we have here in Canada for your return. So if you are going to be coming and going, just know that there will be multiple forms that you're going to have to fill out. That is also going to delay possibly your airport experience, but we'll get into that in a minute as well. The COVID rules once you're in the destination is also something to consider. A lot of the hotels and the service providers have really enhanced their safety protocols, whether this means enhanced sanitation, room cleaning, those sorts of things. They are happening still in Africa, in the hotels and the lodges. You will find that some of the lodges have gone as far to ensure that every single one of their staff is vaccinated to make sure that you feel safe on the ground there as well. You do need to take a look at the quarantine rules. There are some countries that are still requiring a minimum of 5 to 10 days if you do get sick in destination, and you will need to stay. So those may vary a little bit as well. So we do need to take a look at the quarantine rules of each country. And there are a few places right now, especially in Asia, that are doing additional testing once you're in the country. That's what we call the 5-day rule. That is usually an additional test once you've been in the country for a few days, just to make sure that everything is happy and healthy moving forward, and that they haven't missed anything in their initial screenings. And also where to stay in destination is now something to consider as well. Are you somebody that's always liked to be in big cities with hustle and bustle, lots of lineups at some of the major museums and places of interest? Or are you going to go a little bit more socially distanced and ensure that you're staying in some of the smaller lodges that are in more natural environment, and something that's going to give you a little bit more of a peace of mind as you're socially distanced? Moving on is going to be the technology that is now required that you need to have with you or access to as you are traveling. So you need to make sure that you are up to date with your phone and the access to the apps. As I mentioned before, you are now looking at an ArriveCan app, as well as online health forms that will need to be completed. There are some people who didn't travel with phones or tablets before, but this has now become something that's almost mandatory while you're traveling. You need to have the ability to upload documents fairly easily and quickly. So if you do need a PCR test, for example, once you get that information, it will usually come to you in an email. You'll then need to take that attachment and upload it onto an app or another additional website for either a destination or an airline. So you do need to have that ability. With that ability comes the increased cost of being able to connect to Wi-Fi or having access to data. Many people have been traveling around the world for years and have had the luxury of being able to turn off your phone, not worry about long distance phone calls or how much Wi-Fi costs from region to region. But it is something you will need to consider, as having access to Wi-Fi is going to be something that you most likely will need as part of your trip in order to deal with all of the updated documents that you're going to have throughout your trip. And also printing requirements as well. As much as we love to depend on technology, having good old copies of your vaccine card, QR codes, things like that, just in case. You can either print some off before you travel at your own home, or if you are traveling and you want to ensure that your latest PCR test is also accessible to you by hand, you can maybe ask the hotels to print them off for you. But having backup copies just in case is always going to be helpful now as well. Things that you're going to need to pack. So this is in addition to all of your clothes and your shoes and everything else. Again, we're going to go over the phone, the Wi-Fi connection, whether that's going to be a SIM card or just ensuring that you've got the right system down with your service provider before you depart, the copies of the documents. You still need to pack masks. So there will be times in certain destinations where they will ask you to wear masks, either inside the vehicles, inside of restaurants and tourist attractions, and of course on the airlines. Some airlines are still requiring N95 masks, so it might be something that you're going to have to take a look at and bring extras with you as well. And my favorite, we are all going to have to pack some patience. It has been several years since everyone has been traveling again, and it is going to take time for the systems to get streamlined. So this means that the airports are going to be a lot fuller and you're going to be just going through a very much longer process. So please pack your patience. It's been a couple of years and we want to make sure that everybody is going to have a happy and stress-free trip along the way. Airport procedures. Now these have changed as well. What you really need to know is just that the rules around the airports have changed. Some people were always trying to get there to the airport as quick as possible and not have to wait around in those uncomfortable chairs. But unfortunately now, the 3 to 4 hours on the international flights are going to be mandatory. There is going to be extra lineups. There is going to be document checks for passports, for vaccination passports, for PCR tests. So there will be additional lineups that you will have to stand in, as well as additional screening going through your customs. So you just need to ensure that you will be there a few hours extra in order to deal with those lineups. And please remember that over the last 2 years, there has been a lot of changes in the airlines and the airports. And as much as we can hope that everybody will be up to date and ready to go by the time that this new season is in full swing, they are still quite short staffed, and we need to take that into consideration as well. That's going to be everything from airports to hotels and all services. As much as people want to get back to traveling, we are still a little bit short staffed in some places. Additional considerations is, of course, the gorilla trekking. And I do see that additional testing is probably going to be required for the foreseeable future, as these gorillas do share an extraordinary DNA presence and profile with us. So prior to doing any gorilla trekking, if that's something you really want to include in an itinerary, PCR tests will be required. Wellness checks, including your temperature, will be checked on the morning of a trek, and N95 masks are required even to complete the check, and certainly at the time that you will be there in close proximity to the gorillas. Reasons that we need to book now. So as the rules have started to relax and everyone is looking at traveling again, there are some definite reasons why we want to start booking our travel now rather than later, even if you're not ready to jump on a plane for tomorrow. One of the major reasons is going to be the worldwide inflation. We have, of course, felt the effects of that, locally here over the last few years, but it also has increased dramatically worldwide as well. We have to understand that as the gas prices are rising here, gas prices will also be rising, as well as the cost of food and other services. So if you can book now, you may be able to avoid some of those increases that we know are going to be coming again in the future. And you do need to understand that many of these hotels, lodges, and service providers haven't been able to keep their staff or be able to make a profit over the last few years. So some of them will be increasing their costs to try and recoup some of the money that they've lost over the years. There is in Africa as well a limited supply. Many of the lodges and the safari camps that you go to are smaller structures. There are some that will have an extra amount of rooms, but usually a safari lodge will have 3, 6, 10, 12 rooms in total on their property. This means that we are in a supply and demand issue here, because once those rooms are sold, they're going to be sold. You also have to realize that there are many people that had their dream plans booked all the way back in 2020 when travel stopped. So you will have many people who are now looking to rebook from what they already had their deposits down on. So that means much of the space is already taken. And there's also been more of a demand in the last year for some more luxury and immersive holidays. This does mean that the African safaris are going to be something that people are really looking forward to moving into 2022, and supply and demand means that they may be more in demand coming up sooner rather than later. Adventure travel. So I don't know about you, but for the last few years, while we have been socially distancing, me and my family have decided to take up camping. In fact, we did 6 weeks of it during summer holidays last year, and I can't wait to get back to Africa to do some more adventure travel and get really out into the wilderness. So adventure travel trips are usually those that are a little bit more immersive, that go a little bit deeper into a country rather than just hitting the highlights. This will mean that you need to bring your walking shoes and be ready to experience something that's a little bit more off the grid. We have amazing overland trips that we'll be doing multi-destination. One of my personal favorites is always our Trans-Kalahari, which is starting in Cape Town, goes through to Namibia, Botswana, Victoria Falls. You have options that are camping, but also have lodges available as well. So you do have that little bit of luxury, even if you are on what is an adventure travel itinerary. Mobile Botswana safaris is also something that is very popular. That would be a mobile camping trip that you would be taking, that they will be setting up for you every day in different destinations. So you can do a mobile camp in Botswana. That is a great option. There are walking and canoe safaris that are available. It doesn't mean that everything you're going to be doing is going to be water based, but what it means is that they will have a variety of activities that you can do. So sometimes there are places in Kenya, Tanzania, South Africa where you are restricted to staying specifically in the car. There are also other reserves in those countries, as well as other countries that are out, such as Zambia, Zimbabwe, Botswana. We're getting out of the vehicle and actually having a walk or taking a boat ride. Those sorts of things are a lot more accessible and a great way to see the wildlife by getting out of the vehicle and getting that little bit closer. And there's also ways that you can add conservation to your next trip. That may include going and staying in a park or reserve that is doing some conservation work. You may have the ability to see the conservation of cheetahs. Perhaps in Namibia, you can add that to an itinerary where you can stay for a couple of days on a cheetah in a wildcat conservation park. You can also do something in South Africa, for example, where you can be with the teams that are tracking the elephants or putting collars on the rhinos and watching them as they move around. All of those things are possible on an adventure experience in Africa. Wide open spaces. So Africa has some of the largest parks that you can go to, and those are just socially distanced naturally. It's a great place to get away from it all and truly be just at one with the destination and the wildlife. You have unique experiences like going and visiting the local tribes in remote regions. You can also, again, add some more adventure activities such as kayaking, hiking, cycling, whitewater rafting, and you can even finish a trip with scuba diving along the Indian Ocean. Upgrade to private is something that you can do as well. If the thought of sitting in a vehicle with 6 people, or even in some of the larger places, sitting in a vehicle with 10, 12, 15 people in a car isn't what you're looking for, we can definitely upgrade your safari experience to something that is private. There are also charter planes that will be able to fly you from lodge to lodge. So if it is going to be yourselves, perhaps an extended family trip, you can definitely look at getting yourself a charter flight that will take you from lodge to lodge. And there are even lodges and exclusive experiences as well. There are lots of lodges in South Africa that may just have only 3 or 6 rooms to them, and is something that you can hire out fully for your family, which will give you that exclusive private experience that you may want so that you feel more comfortable traveling to a destination. And there are also some amazing remote lodges. You're looking at the deserts in Namibia and Botswana, where you may be the only people around in this stunning desert. You've got some remote and amazing regions in Zimbabwe and Zambia where you can experience the wildlife there, and some really kind of boutique and exclusive lodges in places like South Africa. In Southern Africa, Zambia and Zimbabwe are great places for both luxury tours and active tours. So once again, not just staying in the vehicle the whole time, but really getting out, doing that walking safari, learning more about the flora and the fauna of the region, as well as seeing all the big 5 along your trip. The garden route is fantastic if you want to add some of your water-based activities in there. You can hike along the garden route, walk along the garden route, take a boat to go and see the whales, the dolphins, the sharks, and even do some paddle boarding in some amazing lagoons. One of the most popular trips to Southern Africa is always a Cape Town and Kruger Park package. That's usually about 6 or 7 nights, broken up between Cape Town and Kruger National Park. There are lots of extension options if you're looking to add to that kind of basic package of the 1 week in South Africa. There are many other reserves within South Africa that you can add, in addition to going up to Victoria Falls, adding in Chobe Park in Botswana, or again going all the way to the Indian Ocean and spending some lovely time on the beach over there. The beaches that are nearby Southern Africa is going to be Mozambique, Malawi, which is actually your inland lake. So you've got some beautiful freshwater diving and snorkeling options there. And of course, the stunning Madagascar. Zanzibar, Pemba, Seychelles, Mauritius, all of those are easily accessible as well. From Southern Africa, you can also add in a trip to do some Rwanda gorilla trekking. Rwanda has been taking the opportunity to expand their portfolio over the last few years. They've really dedicated themselves to conservation. Their Akagera National Park is being rejuvenated and hopefully is going to be an amazing experience moving forward, with a big 5 safari hopefully soon to be seen there as well. Group tours, again, are great for long distance trips. So if you're looking to do a multi-destination trip or go through one of the larger countries like Botswana, there are great group tours that are available that will be able to take you along the many roads that connect the national parks together. Or you can do some private tours and some more independent activities and be able to connect the national parks with flights. Moving north, or to what is going to be the center of Africa, is going to be your classic East Africa circuit. That would include either Kenya or Tanzania, or combining both together. You would usually want to do at least 1 week in each country, just so that you can visit a few parks in each and get a real good idea and feel for their safari, their topography, and get that amazing Big Five experience that you're looking for. East Africa is great because most of the tours are going to be done in very small groups. The safari vehicles generally only hold 6 to 7 passengers. So that means that your safari is going to be of a maximum of 7 passengers in a vehicle. Everyone will have a window seat for the entire trip. So if you're looking for something that is small, that is a great way to do it. Year round, East Africa has a fantastic high concentration of wildlife. This means that many of the parks, such as the Masai Mara, Samburu, the Serengeti, and the Ngorongoro crater, will have year-round robust wildlife activity happening. Many people know about the Great Migration, and that is actually a year-round migration. However, it kind of peaks in our summer season. So from about July up until the end of October, it does peak as it crosses over the rivers that between the Masai Mara and the Serengeti. So you can get one of those iconic views of the wildebeest and the zebra that are crossing over the rivers. But there are other areas at different times where the migration will be. And I would certainly recommend to take a look at the calving season of the Great Migration in January and February as well. East Africa has a very large variety of lodges and accommodations. Not everybody is going to Africa for one of those kind of canvas glamping tents. They are definitely available in East Africa in many of the parks, but they do have a lot of lodges as well, which will be able to provide you with a bit more safety and security if that's what you're feeling. Easy access internationally to both Kenya and Tanzania. Kenya being one of the hubs of Africa means that they've got flights coming in every single day. You can absolutely have a very easy access in and out to combine with this itinerary. and obviously both of them will have beach access. So in Kenya, you do have Mombasa, and then in Tanzania, you're looking at Zanzibar and the other islands there as well. So you can always do your bush and beach combinations in East Africa as well as Southern Africa. And only if we're talking about Africa, we also have to talk about North Africa and the Middle East. There are many great activities to do in both Egypt and Morocco. You could take a look at going through a historical trip through Egypt, looking at the tombs and the temples. One of the great ways to do that, of course, is with a Nile cruise, and those have been going for a long time. If you are looking at a Nile cruise, they are fairly small in size, which means that you may be looking at only anywhere between 60 to 100 people per boat. They keep it very small. All the rooms will have outside windows so that you can see the beautiful setting on the Nile as you're sailing along the river. Morocco is also a fantastic country to visit if you have a week or 2 weeks. Morocco is seen as a very cultural experience. So going into some of the Medinas that have been the people have been walking through for 1600 years, something as traditional as eating out of a tagine in the Medina, or even having a traditional Moroccan tea ceremony as well. They of course do have the high Atlas Mountains. They do have a lot of coastline. So in addition to their amazing cultural experiences, you can also add in a beach experience there as well. Desert experiences can be available throughout, whether you're looking at a trek in Egypt around the pyramids on a camel, a trek into the Sahara Desert for an overnight Bedouin experience, or going into places like Dubai, Jordan, Oman. All of them will have amazing desert experiences, either going out for a couple of hours or doing an overnight camping trip into the desert as well. Israel is open again and ready for business. So if you have been waiting for that Holy Land journey, now would be the time to book one of those as well. Jordan is open and has had a lot of visitors in the last year. In addition to Petra, there are many places that you can go for hikes and walks in the mountains north of Jordan, and north of Amman, the capital of Jordan, and all the way down through the wadis and into Wadi Rum. There is some amazing experiences there for hiking and adventure also. Dubai, if you are looking for your big city, there is nothing else like Dubai in the world. It has every activity that you want, of every interest. If you want to go and just lay on the beach, they have the Dubai Palm, which is going to have all of your amazing beach activities with easy access to all of their shopping and fine dining. You have all your outdoor activities. It is super family friendly with many Dubai has many different attractions that you can see, everything from Legoland to all of the other attractions that they have that are based just for kids. Lots of water parks as well. If you're looking for something a little bit more authentic than Dubai, you can definitely try Oman. Oman is a stunning country, great access to the desert, to the mountains, and also, again, a lovely, lovely coastline as well. All of North Africa and the Middle East is very family friendly. So you will find that you can definitely have lots of outdoor adventure activities with the kids. You can also have great restaurants and places for them to relax and enjoy as well. And if you are very interested in diving and snorkeling, the Red Sea is a great place to end any trip in the Middle East. Both all of Jordan, Israel, and Egypt will have their beaches along the Red Sea, and they have some of the best diving there in the world. So what's next? So what's next for Worldly Escapes and the Africa and Middle East travel advice community? Well, right now I'm on a 2-week conference in Africa, a virtual conference. I'm meeting up to 40 suppliers and tour operators a week. We are going to be getting a lot of them to come onto the show. We're going to have live speakers. We're going to have interactive talks with guides and tour operators locally, so you can hear exactly what's going on right from Africa, and you can ask them questions as well. We'll be having clients who are returning off of their trips coming in and giving us their experiences and telling us amazing ideas of what they have done and what they would suggest that you would do, and also other industry experts as well coming in to have chats. We will be going more in depth into different destinations. So we'll be doing more than the overview that we've done today. So if you are looking for detailed local expert advice, we will be covering each country individually, one by one, and going through and really giving you a breakdown of what there is to do, the different activities and the different interests that you can do while you're in those countries. And I would like to highlight the different itineraries that you can do at different price points. And I am here to answer your questions. We will be answering Facebook questions live. You can DM me if you have any questions or you have anything that you want to see. If you've got a topic that you really want to know more about, a country that is completely interesting to you, and you really want to see what tour ideas they are, DM me, send me an email. All of that is available for you, and I am here to help you plan your next trip. So thank you very much for coming, and I cannot wait until we have another chat again in the near future. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great night.